So I want to get to a real topic here, and I want to ask you about the Joe Rogan interview
Yeah.
with Peterson. So
Yeah.
they were talking about climate change.
Well, let's just say one thing. He's a different man now. I can tell. Listening to him now versus whenever his first podcast was with Joe Rogan. I don't know if that was 6 years ago or maybe 8 years ago now, a long time ago.
Which of them is a different man?
Jordan Peterson. Well, and Joe Rogan's different as well, but Jordan, I can tell, has gone through some shit. You can tell it in his voice. At one point, he almost cries. I don't know if you caught that part.
I didn't. I want you to know something. I only saw a few highlights. I didn't watch the entire thing.
Oh, he almost cries at one point. He almost broke down when he was talking about people playing music, and I was like, wow. And you can tell that he is a man who is still suffering in terms of his recovery from substance abuse. Frankly, that's what he talks about in depth, and it is a serious thing. It's a serious thing that affects a lot of Americans. Jordan Peterson's not alone in that, and I don't think it's to be kind of trivialized. It's very, very severe. Even the strongest people have problems fighting these things.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts about their conversation on climate change? So do you first of all, do you believe that what are your feelings in general before we get to their conversation? What are your feelings in general about climate change?
I like that he brought it to what does that even fucking mean? Like, what does that word even mean? What does climate change even mean? Because what they say it means is not what they think it means, and the meaning is always changing on what that means. Because I said, oh, well, Al Gore was talking about the temperature going up. Well, that shit hasn't happened. We're having some of the coldest winters out there. Well, extreme weather is part of it. Okay, well, a lot of
it used to be global warming, and then they changed it to climate change.
Right, to climate change. And what does that mean? Okay, well, climate is not necessarily weather. That's different. Weather phenomena are different. Also, a lot of these things, and I do believe that the temperature changes over time, of course, and the general weather patterns change over time, of course. But is that caused by humans alone, or humans as the only factor? Hell no. Or even the dominant factor. I don't believe they're not. I believe they're maybe a factor, but we're definitely not the dominant factor. In fact, I have a good guy on my locals named Tony. Since the beginning I started my channel, he put me on learning a lot more about the cosmic effects. The effect of our sun and our solar system on our climate has a way larger effect than anything that humanity is going to do. The distance we are from the sun, the cosmic rays, the solar flares, that's going to affect us way more than any pittance of CO2 that we put out. Like, get the fuck out of here. I'm sorry.
So what is your thought as to why it is that this has
I don't think we should hamper. I'm with Jordan Peterson. I think that what he articulates about economic growth, I agree with. I think that economic growth or hampering economic growth leads to suffering. And we've seen that with the pandemic. We've seen depression. We've seen people losing purpose. We've seen suicides up. We've seen girls increased in self-harm. We've seen people not learning social skills. I think that's the thing that is the real issue here. Along that
line.
Hold on. But like you said, rich people are never going to be affected by these cutbacks and going green or whatever the hell else. It's poor people that are going to be affected by this, are going to be most affected by this. The people that want to use coal, the people that want to use oil, the people that want to use what's available to them at a cheap price, but they can't use it because someone says they have to use expensive biofuels or renewables, which don't work sometimes or lead to rolling blackouts. It's ridiculous, it's prejudicial, and it's completely part of the white progressive liberal agenda. And yes, I use the word Joe.
No, that was an appropriate place to use the word agenda.
Yes,
I wasn't trying to co-opt that word and
no, I love that it's become your word. Like it's associated with you.
I love it. By the way, nothing could have made me prouder. But I would agree with you that that's an appropriate. I think that this is all part of an agenda. This is part of authoritarianism. This is a part of lecturing people what you can and cannot do. It is a power move, and it has always been a power move. And when you take, and this is the thing is, everyone here starts to question the science based on events of the last couple of years, but I've been questioning the term science for a decade before that. Because to me, when you start giving financial incentive to science and calling it science, which arguably, look, that's happened for a while, but when you start giving it to science that cannot really be disproven, because it's speculative science. That's what this really is. When you
Well, and
talk,
to the extent that it can be, it has been disproven, because they were saying,
right,
oh well, these other things don't have an effect. And then when they were challenged by science about for example, just we're talking about cosmic rays, for example, like Katrina, there was a lot of solar activity the year of Katrina, and they're like, well, maybe that has something to do with it. When you start controlling for these things, it shows up.